Welcome back to the Great American History class. In this episode, we are going to be reading through the UPI article, The Battle of Little Bighorn. You'll find this article at the bottom of your Schoology account page. UPI stands for United Press International, and ultimately it is going to be one of their feature writers, and it's going to include her perspective opinion along with historical fact, and also based on the video movie Son of the Morning Star, which is a miniseries that aired by ABC in 1991, so about 20 years ago. And so again, the movie miniseries by ABC is based on the book Son of the Morning Star. So with that said, you all know what Mr. Ripley says about reading. Reading is good. Comprehension is better, because when we comprehend, that means we understand what we're reading. So we got to actively think about what we're reading. And of course, Mr. Ripley is going to break this article down as only he can do it. So let's take a read of The Battle of Little Bighorn, may be called Custer's Last Stand. New York. The Battle of Little Bighorn may be called Custer's Last Stand, but it really was the last stand of the Indians against the white men who had invaded their nation, killed their buffalo, and stolen their land. This point is made by Kate Bighead, the Indian woman who is one of two characters who narrates Son of the Morning Star, a two-part miniseries to air on ABC Sunday, February 3rd and Monday, February 4th from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. The other narrator is going to be Libby Custer, wife of General George Armstrong Custer. Again, both of those people are real-life people that actually lived and or died through these events, and they do a great job of narration. And the one really good thing about Son of the Morning Star, the book and the miniseries, is that it tells the story perspective from both sides, from the Native American Indian side and also through the American Custer side as well. Gary Cole plays Custer. Rosanna Arquette is going to play his wife, Libby. And Dean Stockwell is on hand as General Phil Sheridan. Buffy St. Marie is the voice of Kate Bighead. This is a series show. This is a serious show. As a matter of fact, it is deadly serious, without any leavening of humor, about a tragic period in American history based on the book written by Evan S. Cannell, as well as other sources. This is a modern day Western, the kind in which the cavalry are the bad guys. Unfortunately for ABC, the timing is inauspicious at this moment in history. Audiences might prefer the old style Westerns in which the cavalry came in riding to the rescue. Americans should be aware of this dark side of American history, but it's questionable whether they are in the mood now for 4 hours in which they are the villains, and the conspirators against the victims include the President, General, and now President Ulysses Sam Grant, and General William Tecumseh Sherman. That is General William Tecumseh Sherman from Sherman's March to the Sea that you may recall from the Civil War. Then there's the matter of watching American soldiers massacred, no matter how badly abused the victorious Indians may have been. It also can be trying to watch 4 hours of television in which there are no characters with whom you can identify. Custer, who commands the screen, as well as the 7th Cavalry, is a hot dog, an ambitious officer seeking glory at all costs. So Custer is thought and known to have a big ego, and again sought the glorious battle victory, and even turned down the use of a 2nd Cavalry unit to go along with him, because he did not want to share in the glory of battle victory with another cavalry unit. You all know cavalry means by horseback. Maybe he doesn't ask his men to do anything that he would not do, but for him the rewards of risk are so much greater than for his men. As it happens, the penalty of failure is the same for all, and that is going to be the penalty of death. On the plus side, Son of the Morning Star sums up dramatically some of the history of the Plains Indian Wars from the greedy victimization of the Native Americans to the intrigue in Washington to the career of Custer and the parallel development of the Indian warrior Crazy Horse. The device of having the two women act as narrators, the one loyal to her husband, Libby Custer, the other to her people, Kate Bighead, is effective, and their differing views of some of the same events are illuminating. The story begins in Montana in June of 1876 when an Army unit finds the bodies of the 7th Cavalry at Little Bighorn. From there, the action flashes back to 1866 when Custer arrives to take over the 7th Cavalry, which was organized to protect the homesteaders moving to the west, the miners and the railroad men as they moved west, often onto Indian land. Custer had been a popular Union hero during the Civil War, and at age 23, the youngest general in the U.S. Army history. That's a field rank. Custer actually never rose higher than a colonel in permanent rank, which rankled him to some point. For 10 years, Custer followed orders, generally with enthusiasm, that involved killing, chasing, and double-crossing Indians. There was the battle in the winter of 1868 when Custer took the 7th Cavalry out of Camp Supply in Kansas and headed for the Cheyenne camp of Black Kettle on the Washita River in Oklahoma. That became known as the Washita Attack, and Evan Escanal in his book describes it basically as a slaughter pen where Custer and the 7th Cavalry basically slaughtered some sleeping Native American Indians under Chief Black Kettle, who were told by the American government and military that they would be safe if they kept to themselves and flew the American flag over their encampment. But that apparently was not the case with Custer's Washita attack. Custer's version of that Washita attack differs greatly from the Indian perspective. Custer's version held that 51 teepees were destroyed, 53 women and children taken prisoner, and 103 Indian warriors killed. However, Kate Bighead and the Indian perspective says that the Cheyenne suffered only 11 warriors killed in the attack, and the rest of the dead were women, children, and old men. By the summer of 1874, the United States government had broken promises and treaties with the Indians, and now settlers began invading the Black Hills, again because that was just after gold had been discovered, Black Hills gold. The Indians held the Black Hills to be sacred, to be their sacred land. Crazy Horse, the young Indian warrior, who had never signed any treaties with the white man, said this: "One does not sell the land on which all living things walk." And that was always a divisive item between the white European American settlers and the Indians. The Indians felt that the land belonged to everyone, and the white European American settlers believed in land ownership. This film shows Crazy Horse as a man who in his youth had a vision of being an invulnerable warrior, which he feels he is destined to become, but who also keeps a vigil for 3 days and nights over the body of his 3-year-old daughter, who died of cholera, a bacterial disease generally found in contaminated water. One more gift from the white man, Kate Bighead observes. Events for the last stand began actually on May 17, 1876, when the 7th Cavalry rode out of Fort Abraham Lincoln, named after the great President Abraham Lincoln. Again, this little part here is incorrect in the article. Events for the Custer's Last Stand, or the Indians' Last Stand, depending on what perspective you want to take, is going to begin on May 17, 1876, when the 7th Cavalry rode out of Fort Abraham Lincoln, that again is located in Bismarck, North Dakota, in the Dakota Territory in search of the quote-unquote hostile Indians. Remember, they're considered to be quote-unquote hostile Indians. That means violent, dangerous Indians, because the President Grant administration had ordered all Native American Indians, particularly the Sioux Indians, living in this region, to report to live on reservational lands, and if they did not, do so by January 31st, 1876, they would be termed to be hostile. Custer and the 7th Cavalry, along with a couple of other military units, are sent out in search of these quote-unquote hostile Indians. On Sunday, June 25th, Custer would find them in the valley of the Little Bighorn River in present-day southeastern Montana. Thousands of them, estimated to be about 10,000 of them, with Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse leading the way. The white man brought us together, Kate Bighead says bitterly. In the end, after the Battle of Little Bighorn, where Crazy Horse, by all accounts, was the most courageous of all Indian warriors, and may have accounted for multiple deaths of the 7th Cavalry members. In the end, Crazy Horse is going to surrender just a few months after the battle victory, as Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull go their separate ways. Sitting Bull took a large number of Indians up into Canada for about 5 years before they returned, but Crazy Horse is going to surrender, and ultimately he's going to be killed at a fort called Fort Robinson in Nebraska. You'll see it at the end of the video. In 1881, Sitting Bull would also surrender, coming back from Canada. That would be 5 years after the Battle of the Little Bighorn. In 1990, some Indians called for the ghost dance to bring back the buffalo in the Indian land. The last of the ghost dancers would be massacred at Wounded Knee, South Dakota, and the Plains Indian Wars would be over. So, it's a great day to be an American, and hopefully the breakdown of that reading will help you as you take a look at the Battle of Little Bighorn, Custer's Last Stand, Son of the Morning Star.